When you approach a new problem, you have to look at it as if this problem has never been solved before. I follow that.
According to you, how are you being different?
I am a student of human nature. It's not functionalism, it's feeling. I started out in the era of functionalism and I changed over the time.
And you went through the partition and all of that.
I almost got left out at a railway station during the crisis time. And then
How different was India when you came back from a cultural point of view?
I quickly realized in Delhi, if you want to get work, you have to line somebody's pockets, no matter who it is.
So what was the reason for you to come back to India?
So ultimately, you want to be back home.
How did your practice in the US help you establish your business in India?
I think,
Somewhere along the line, Vastu comes into the picture.
see, if you look at the basic principles of Vastu, they tell you the northeast corner of the property should not have a tree. Very simple, they don't want you to lose the sunlight.
So you've seen about 5 decades of Bangalore. How do you record this shift?
I've seen total destruction of Bangalore. AI is not supposed to make mistakes. But how do you learn if you don't make mistakes? If you're not learning, you're not growing. If you're not growing, so you're going backwards.
You had a different set of challenges when you started off. What would be your suggestion of things that we should hold on to and things that we should just let go?
I think first thing,
Creative Spark Plug is a black book of creative journeys. In this podcast, we speak with creative people and record their stories. It inspires youngsters, gives insight into creative lives, and nourishes the ones feeling challenged. Today, we are speaking with somebody very senior, and I've been curious about him for a while. We are speaking to architect V.K. Girdhar. Welcome to our show, sir.
Yes. Thank you.
I think we've been trying to get you on the podcast for quite some time. So Girdhar sir is somebody whom I worked with. I know him not very well, I would say, but I know him for a while now. It's been, I think, close to 18 years since I finished working with him and moved out, did other things. So Girdhar sir is a senior Indian architect with a multidisciplinary approach to architecture. He belongs to a generation that witnessed Indian architecture defining its identity after the independence. So we'd really love to understand your story and hear from you what it was like growing in those years, doing architecture. But I think Bashob has a direction that he would want to take it to. So we'll.
I have a simpler question, but I would want him to speak. So I'll tell you what I'm curious about. I'm curious about, I think it's rarely that we come across somebody who's seen political, social, environmental change in one lifetime and architecture as a response to that. And we are lucky, we feel, that we get to talk with you today. What has been how have you responded in all these years to all of these things that you were a part of?
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I think I'll enjoy this interaction. Very rarely people come and talk to me, because I generally have stayed within myself. See, when I started going to school, we had 5 schools of architecture in the entire country. And we used to say 5 lamps of architecture.
Right.
And it was not one of the most sought after professions, because there was a craze for engineering those days. In fact, my family was pushing me to go for engineering. Luckily, I flopped in the admission test. And then I could do what I wanted. Even though I got admitted in Roorkee University for engineering, where it was just a 3-year course and one of the most difficult places to get, I told my parents, look, it's too expensive. I don't want you to waste your money. So that's how I came into architecture a year later. I won't say it was exactly my choice at the time, but I'm glad that I made this choice, whether it was by accident or not. So when we went to school, I went to Delhi School of Architecture. Those days it was part of Delhi Polytechnic. And we were also lucky that a whole generation of young Indian architects who had studied abroad to UK, USA, Harvard, gravitated towards the School of Architecture in Delhi. And I think it is this variety of experiences which influenced at least my way of thinking. we had a professor by the name Ranjit Subeki, very well-known urbanist who recently passed away. He was probably the best teacher I had. He used to devise a customized way of extracting work out of different students. I remember one day there was one guy who never submitted his work on time, and he said, if you don't submit your project by the end of tomorrow, I'm going to go to your house and complain to your father.
Yeah.
And then there was another student who we realized that he doesn't care about his parents until you sit here all night and I am going to sit in the studio with you and you're going to bloody well finish your work. So that is the kind of commitment this teacher had. So personally, he was my studio director in third year architecture. First 2 years, I would say I was not really settled in this educational system. And then suddenly we had one Satish Davar who unfortunately didn't long enough. But Ranjit Subeki, one day I was goofing off, but I had come up with some concept which was not working. And what hit me the most was what he said to me at that time. He said, to me he addressed, Girdhar साहब, आप का आइडिया बहुत बढ़िया है, पर you are the only one who can solve the problem that is there in this. Nobody else can. And I have full faith in you. And that's what perked me up. And that was the beginning of my real affair with architecture. And then we had another professor, Bruno D'Souza, who was the head of the School of Architecture for several years. When I was before that, in fourth year architecture, Louis Kahn visited our school.
Louis Kahn.
Louis Kahn visited our school. Students' projects were exhibited. And Louis Kahn picked 2 projects. And he said, these are ideal student works. And both were my projects.
Nice.
And you can imagine the kind of impetus it gives you when somebody of that stature talks to you. And this was followed by a talk by him. He spoke for 2.5 hours, kept everybody spellbound. And nobody moved out of seats. And by the time his lecture got over, nobody felt that it was really that kind of time he was sitting there. It was so good. And one of the most inspiring lectures. We also had the privilege of meeting Corbusier and Pierre Jeanneret.
Oh.
Chandigarh was under development. It had just started. The High Court building was half built. We visited Chandigarh. So we had the privilege of shaking hands with Corbusier, and for a week we didn't allow anybody to shake our hands. So
I think we would have done the same today after so many years also.
So basically, some of these happenings really put some fire in my mind, and I got really serious about it. And then after that, there was no stopping. I searched my own thoughts. I did things which were totally different, unheard of. Incidentally, I still have my college projects, which I think were probably my best works. I still have the documentation of my projects. And then Bruno D'Souza came in final year. He was my thesis director. And I was working on thesis housing in desert. So everybody warned me, so you're taking a very complicated subject. So Bruno was the one who used to come and pat me on my back. Great, do it. You can do it. And Ranjit Subeki also, he used to walk into the studio. But Ranjit Subeki used to walk into every studio. So basically we had this young blood, and Ranjit Subeki, Satish Davar, Ram Sharma, and and little more mature Professor Bruno D'Souza, and I think that these guys gave birth to this lot of careers in from my class.
Oh.
So that was the beginning, and then I worked for a year at Kothari, very commercial office. So he gave me a project. He says, "You have a free hand. You can do what you want." It was Biju Patnaik, famous Biju Patnaik's outhouse on Prithviraj Road. And they said budget is no constraint. So I didn't know much about casting yet. So I had fun. It came out really good. When the contractor gave the bill, Kothari calls me and says, "You're ruining me, Girdhar." I said, "You gave me a free hand.
Yeah.
The cost is no constraint." So he yelled at me. He didn't pay my salary that month. And then I quit. So I quit his office, and then I went and joined School of Planning and Architecture. They had a course on housing and community planning. I knew that's not going to offer me much, but I just joined there. They gave me scholarship,
Nice.
and a lot of young professors who had just started practicing gave me freelance work. So I was busy making enough money and earning another diploma in planning. From there, I applied for MIT, Harvard, Columbia University, Yale, and Professor Bruno D'Souza said when I went to him for recommendation, "Why are you wasting your time? The way you work, you should be going to MIT."
Mm-hmm.
So he gave me a one-line letter of recommendation. "This is the best you can get." And that's all.
Nice.
I got in there, I got fellowship, and I ended up at MIT. So, but in the process, there was a big loss. There was a lot of activity in India at that time. So I missed that opportunity in India. There was a lot of opportunity in Gulf countries. They had just discovered oil. Everybody was gravitating towards Gulf. But Professor Bruno D'Souza's words, "You must go there." I went there, and I selected actually a specialization which was really not design. It was buildings as systems.
Mm-hmm.
So it was mixture of technology, design, and so on. So this was my next step for molding into what I became ultimately. So my thesis was building the integrated system. So basically, we designed a building system in which you could, it was a laboratory building. You could expand, divide, subdivide, and that system would still work. You could convert AC systems into subsystems or link them into an overall system. Basically, so I got this design and thinking background back home. I got technology input at MIT, and then and what else can you ask for? So, but I still regret having missed that period in India.
Which year was this approximately?
67.
67.
67 से 15 years he was in US.
Right. So 67, we
Till
were
almost
Republic.
1980.
We were Republic. SPA was already there. IITs
No,
were
it's
already.
He'd already finished.
I went to MIT in 67,
Ah.
but
He'd already
64.
finished a course in SPA.
Ah.
His more like a PG diploma
Right.
after his BR degree.
Right.
And went to SPA for a year.
Yes.
Did PG diploma. And then from there went for masters to MIT.
MIT, right? Now I'm trying to map this time because 67 to 72, lots happened. I mean, we started with 14 states. We ended up with some 24 states in those 15 years. Plus your politics changed completely. A lot of institutions came up there. I don't know when the IITs came up, but I think it's in that span.
Yes. Basically, I think I had another friend, I can't remember his name, Virendra Kumar, architect.
Right.
very, very established architect.
Right.
That firm is still there. His son is running it. Virendra Kumar was supposed to go to Harvard when I went to MIT.
Right.
At the last moment, he decided not to go. And you can see he benefited from that, and I lost those benefits.
Right.
So, in a sense, I think if somebody were to ask me, I wouldn't tell them to go abroad for education right after finishing school. They should really get the grounding back home before they go anywhere. So, but then, I had in my mind gone there for 3 years, and I was planning to come back. It took me 14, 15 years to come back. That place is like a bloody magnet. You don't want to leave it. I worked there for Skidmore, Owings and Merrill for 2 years. It was boring after a year. You can learn a lot of good detailing, everything. I even got a chance to work with Gordon Bunshaft. And luckily what happened was my boss was on leave, and he needed the drawings of a project which I was working on. He walks into the studio, and I was just sitting there twiddling my thumbs. Says, I thought you were supposed to do this. It has been ready for a week. And bring your drawings. So I showed him drawings of what my immediate boss had suggested I should do, and I had 2 more alternatives. So he picked my alternate.
Right.
And this building was American Can Company headquarters.
Right.
Okay. In Greenwich, Connecticut. But these big offices are like government offices. What you can do is important, but it's also important whose connection you came into that place. I had just walked in.
Oh, even there at that time, all that was mattered.
Yes.
That with whose connection you got into.
Yes. It happens everywhere, much more so in our country, but it happens there also. Then I worked for another firm. After that, only other firm I worked for was Grusin and Partners. When I joined that firm, I was hired to do a planning project. And that was based on my varied backgrounds. So the head of the planning department was very unhappy because that project was taken out of his hands and given to me. It was development of 300 acres of railroad yards. So we had proposed a full township on the existing railroad yards, 17,000 apartments.
Oh.
So the idea was to cover up this ugliness without disrupting the infrastructure.
Right.
So we developed structural systems to work on it and so on. But unfortunately, this thing never took off. Now they are doing something which is on a smaller scale.
After so many years.
After so many years, the architect who is working on it is my age group. And whether it will really get built or not, because she asked me to share the drawing we had done. So I had almost all the documentation with me. The office didn't have there. So this office I worked, and so this man was very unhappy. Ultimately, we became best friends.
Nice.
Then I did a school building, which was published all over. And then they got jail projects.
Jail projects.
Jail projects.
Yeah.
So this was a challenge because those days you had very limited data on jail designs available. Time Saver Standard had a small chapter which was kind of outdated. But our office had done some really revolutionary work in jail designs. They had designed a jail with glass facades. And their inference was that if you give people good living conditions, you can correct their behavior, and it was working. Till today, from Leesburg jail, till today, I am told there has been no escape from there.
The one that you worked on?
No. A lot of people stay there because it's a good place, because they don't want to leave. They get good food, good place to live, good views. But then there are a lot of people who are resettled because they were treated well. And some of them even made statements like, it was the first time we were treated like human beings. And so with that background, the architect who had designed that was still in the office. He was a partner in the firm. So suddenly they gave me jail to design. This was in St. Paul, Minnesota. I went there. We were supposed to work with the local office. So I stayed there. So for 1 month, I stayed in a hotel there, which overlooked the site.
Nice.
So there were several sites which were given to us. We picked a site which was into the cliff of the hill, but across the street from a courthouse. This was a pre-trial facility. So basically, I used to sit there and watch the site. So ultimately, on my insistence, we picked that site and we produced a jail there, which had up and down of the Mississippi River. Up and down view of the Mississippi River from every single room.
Nice.
The roof of the building was the level of the road above, and a park. So it was a public park. There was entrance to the jail facility, 2 floors of offices and visiting center, and 4 floors of rooms.
And public could come on the park.
Public could walk around on the park.
Oh,
I want to see this now.
So
No, it's cliff. Every room has a view. And you're talking about 4 floors and public coming up.
and totally secure because the prisoners are not easily accessible. And we won honor award of the American Institute of Architects for that.
Nice.
nice.
That award came after I left the country. And the last thing I designed was York College.
Okay.
York College was a team project in which I was leading. And this thing was built to rejuvenate a black neighborhood in Queens. So basically, there was a train station, and on the one side of this train station was mixed white and black neighborhood. Whereas the other side was all black neighborhood, and that area was dilapidating. So they decided to build a campus there to rejuvenate it. So this campus was designed with a mall in the middle. The idea was the mall is also the pathway the entire community can walk through to go to where they live, to get them excited. And also the concept in this case was that it's a mall for education. So various professors would display what they teach, what the course does, and you can go and select what you want. And it was built after we left. So apparently it's a big success. And the neighborhood has revived in a big way. So that was the last project I did.
You took up architecture, but was there any, during schooling, or was it like generally somebody gets into this field with either somebody being in a construction from the family? Was any kind of that situation there with you, or you just decided to take up architecture?
No, it was a black notebook.
Okay.
So my elder brothers were contractors, both of them. But according to them, I should have been in engineering.
Okay.
They were civil engineers, contractors. And
you're also from across the border, right, from then undivided India.
Yes.
So, and you went through the partition and all of that.
To some extent, because my father was already transferred to Delhi.
Okay.
We were in Pakistan.
Okay.
So my mother used to tell me that I almost got left out at a railway station during the crisis time. And then my father was in postal service. So one postman who was working under my father had come to see us off. So he restored me to the family. But I don't really remember that much.
So you would have been about what, 4, 5, 6?
47. So I was 6 years old.
6 years.
6 years. Yeah. 2020.
I was the youngest in the family, most protected. So I was kept away from all the negativities.
You worked with some of the big names in the US, and you also went from India when Indian architecture scene was just starting
Beginning to
open
explode.
up and explode. Also, like Lee Corbusier, and the masters of architecture then were already visiting India. Like
Yes,
Corbusier,
correct.
Louis Kahn.
Yes.
So they were already coming in here. You met them in the college that you were studying in.
Louis Kahn came later.
Okay. Then you went and worked with Skidmore,
Skidmore.
Robbins and Merrill.
Yes.
Today is one of the biggest architecture
They were the
firms.
biggest even then.
Okay, so they'd already reached
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So what was it like to work in during that time in an Indian context and a US context? What was the difference back then?
I was well known in circles by the time I finished college. The next morning, Kothari's office had sent somebody already to my house with a letter of appointment.
Nice. Sweet.
And his Kothari's younger son, I had guided him on his thesis and helped him a lot on the thesis. So he must have been instrumental. So next morning, I had a job. Kothari was very commercial. As I told you, when we did this Biju Patnaik's outhouse.
Yeah.
So he gave me a free hand. And then when the cost shot up, I was blamed for it.
So tell me something. It's independent India, when the independence is happening, and there was a possibility that you would have been left behind in a platform somewhere in Pakistan. But you were about 6 then.
6.
By the time you graduated or became an architect,
Yes.
right? That would mean another 14 years,
Yes.
right? So that is around 1969, 1970.
66.
66.
66,
64 is when I finished BR.
Okay, 64. And then you went to the US.
Yes.
So let's say even if I throw in a year of you
Just
having
1 year
yes,
of working here.
67 and then 15 years there.
Yes.
So that means you came back in somewhere around 83, 84.
Yes.
This is when
I came back in 79.
79. Okay. Yes, you're right about that. 12 saal, 13 saal ki calculation. Right? I was just born. Were you born?
I wasn't even thought of being born. Bhagwan ne bhi nahi socha tha tab.
No, I'll tell you why. See, if the little that I know about American history at that point of time, one is post-war. Baby boomers were happening.
Yes.
The stage for the cultural shift. You know, the rock bands and all of these.
It was already there. Jazz music was very
Did you
popular.
attend Woodstock?
Huh?
Did you go for Woodstock?
No, I didn't. But I had the privilege of listening to Duke Ellington in a restaurant where he used to play. Top of the Sixes in New York City.
Right, but you were in the US when the Woodstock happened.
Yes,
Right.
it was. But I didn't go.
Right. Okay, so all of this is happening, right? There is also anti-establishment in its height. Otherwise, those bands would not have been
Yes.
how we know them.
Yes.
So that means politically and socially in the US, there is a lot of upheaval. There is no...
I was not really affected by it in any way because we had blacks we worked with. I think it was reasonably integrated. That discrimination was at up to certain level.
Right.
So beyond certain level, at least wherever I went, this issue was not there.
And you did not face the brunt of it or anything
No.
like that? So even when you were designing York School...
York College.
York College, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And the premise was, in your words, you know, the rejuvenation of black neighborhood.
That was the purpose established by the client, the government.
Right.
We had nothing to do with it. We walked around the neighborhood. In fact, before I got married, I used to regularly go to Harlem. I had a lot of black friends. There were a couple of instances when the black guys tried to threaten me. What are you doing in this place? Go back to your country. So I looked at him as, what are you doing here? You should be in Africa. And then this guy laughs his head off, comes and hugs me. You're cool, man.
Nice. So you befriended people of African origin.
See, it depends on if you're scared, they'll scare you.
Right.
That will happen probably in Harlem even today.
Right.
But it's not as unsafe as people make it out to be.
Right.
So we have neighborhoods like this in our country, even now.
Right. And what was your insight about these places? So when you walked these streets and you
Hmm.
befriended people of African origin
Hmm.
and all of these exchanges
Hmm.
happened, what was your specific insight from a creative point of view that you were able to apply to the design of the college?
Basically, most of the campuses are closed.
Okay.
Okay. So like if you to go to MIT, that's where I went. The main campus has a door in the front which is locked.
Right.
Okay. I mean, which is lockable.
Hmm.
The students work day and night there, so it was never locked. But there's a door which locks.
Right.
Whereas this campus is open. The mall in the campus, is open 24 hours a day.
So there's no defined entry as such.
It is a walkway for the community to walk through to go to their neighborhood.
How would you?
I've not seen it completed.
Yeah, you came back before that.
Yes.
So a couple of things I wanted to understand that during the time that you finished your architecture, started working.
He also got married. I'm curious about which year.
So you want to ask that before I get to the other thing?
Yeah, because see, he's missed Woodstock, but he's about to come back 79, right? You weren't thought about, but he's gotten married, right? So which year did you get married? There or here?
No, I got married here. I came back in 71. I got
71. Okay.
Got married
and
and
back
went.
again.
Okay. So you took your wife there as well.
Yes, yes.
And that's Minnesota.
No. New York City.
New York City. Hey, New York was a very different place then.
New York, different parts of the city are different. You go to village, it's different. East Village is different. West Village is different. Uptown Harlem is different. East Side, Uptown is different. Midtown is different. So this is really the variety of cultures there. And the village, the way it is today, was different when we were there. The village area on the east side used to be originally factories. By the time we came, the factories started moving out because of the infrastructure problems. And those are converted into artist lofts.
Yes.
So the cycle continues. If you, I don't know, you must be knowing if you, in New York City, there's a continuous development process. When we were there, the east side was getting rebuilt and taller buildings were coming. A few years later, same process was happening on the west side.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Then on the riverfront,
Right.
you must have heard of Battery Park and all
Yeah.
that. So the riverfront development. Then another one was this island, which was a jail originally on the east side.
Right.
Right. You had to go to the Brooklyn Bridge and go down.
Right.
Okay. So Brooklyn Bridge is what used to connect to Queens area.
Right.
So back then when you moved to Delhi, the Lutyens Delhi and all, was it developed already or did it come up
Which
after?
one?
The central Delhi, the Connaught Place and...
Central Vista.
No, Connaught Place
Vista
was
is new.
still more or less the same, but the radial roads were big. The multi-story building that just started.
Okay.
Bank of Baroda was one of the first ones that was being done by Kothari's office. There was another bank building which I worked on for a while. And then the senior architect was not too comfortable. So he had me shifted to another group so that I don't take the credit.
So you had worked in India before you went to US.
Just for a year.
Went and studied in MIT. Were the offices here in Indian context as big as the US offices already by then?
Well, the office I worked in USA were much bigger.
So offices there had already started becoming bigger than what?
No, the Skidmore, Owings and Merrill was 250 man office.
Oh, that time.
And it was one branch.
Only the New York office.
Yes. They had branches. No, they had branches all over Europe already.
So you're saying 250 architects in one office?
Yes.
And they had already established across...
So 250 people, including engineers.
So
the second office I worked in was 150 people.
And in Indian context, such a big office was not known of at that point of time.
Kothari's Bombay office was.
They were also that big, 200?
150.
Okay.
Bombay office was 150. Delhi office was, I think, 75.
So there were large offices in India that time.
Yes.
And Mr. Kothari's office, does it still operate or is it?
No, it used to be really Master Sathi and Kothari.
Mhm.
Then it became Kothari and Sons. Now there are two sons. They are split. Now there are two offices.
Okay.
Rupa Kothari and Anup Kothari. Bombay had a lot of bigger offices, always.
Mhm.
So the bigger offices, the biggest offices were always in Bombay because that's where the
India
architectural
was used to
activities.
large architectural
yes,
offices
yes,
back then also.
yes.
Okay. So you've grown up in a time when people like B.V. Doshi, Charles Correa, and on the Indian context,
Yes.
and I think Raj Rewal. I don't know if you
Rai Rewal came later. Rai Rewal, I think, was my senior.
He was your senior.
Senior.
So names like this in an Indian context, plus architects like Peter Eisenman, Franco Gehry, even Frank Lloyd Wright. I think Frank Lloyd Wright had already established quite a bit of work when you went there. So you had an opportunity to experience his work.
Frank Lloyd Wright, I don't think he was around anymore.
So he wasn't around when you went there. So
Gary was.
Huh?
Gary was.
Gary had just started.
Gary is about a year or two aage piche from him.
Huh.
Gary passed away at the age of 90, just a couple of months back.
1986.
Gary passed away now recently.
Yeah.
He was 90.
Frank Gehry, Robert Stern, all these people came much later.
Oh, so they all came much later.
They came later than I went to US.
Okay. You
Most
did not
probably
meet any of them? I mean, any...
Robert Stern I met when I was working at on Sunnyside Yards in New York City. Robert Stern had organized an exhibition called Another Chance for Cities.
Mm-hmm.
So in that exhibition, one of the projects was Sunnyside Yards. So Robert Stern was definitely younger to me.
And what about names like Norman Foster, Zaha Hadid,
Norman Foster, senior.
They were all senior.
Yes. What's the name of the person who designed Pompidou Center?
Richard Rogers.
Yes, he came later.
Okay.
He came later. I had competed in that competition.
Okay.
So we were placed at number 12. Yes. Yeah. My office didn't support me. I did it only all on my own. Mm-hmm. I even competed in Iran competition. It was, I forget the name of the project now. During the Shah Iran of Iran time. So I still have some documentation sitting with me.
Nice.
Some of my college time projects, which I'm very fond of, I still have documentation.
So during the time when you were there, deconstruction, postmodernism,
it was happening.
Deconstruction
yes.
had started.
Deconstruction chalu ho gaya hoga. I mean, postmodern, decon, Art Nouveau was still alive.
Art Nouveau was earlier then.
I mean,
Art Nouveau was much earlier.
Or am I talking about Art Deco? Because Calcutta was high on Art Deco at that point of time.
So were all these isms very, very evident that it was being practiced the way it was?
I personally didn't subscribe to any of these.
Okay.
So I generally have stayed away from isms completely. So I never wanted to be branded as part of that ism or that ism. Mm-hmm. It is what I am, and that's it. Or what this society expects from us.
So what's your take on that? Like, does it make having an ism or having a style of design towards architecture, does it, is it important to have one like that?
I think basically something like modernism makes sense to me. Postmodernism to some extent, but deconstruction, philosophically, it makes a lot of sense. Basically, if you read the philosophical part, deconstructionism, all that it says is when you approach a new problem, you have to look at it as if this problem has never been solved before. True. So if you look at it from that perspective, it is totally correct. I follow that. But what has been done in the name of deconstructionism is I have difficulty digesting that.
And Lee Corbusier, Charles Correa, all of these people were also just more or less couple of
See,
years
Lee
up and-
Corbusier was strongly form oriented.
Mm.
Hmm?
Mm.
Basically, that is something, I think it's an imposition on people. Whereas Charles Correa's work is very sensitive and responds to human nature, human requirements. That's my feelings. Likewise, Doshi, to a very, very large extent, you can relate to what he does. Anybody can relate.
So Mr. Doshi and all were of the same timeline?
Doshi, in fact, became very well known just after I came back to India.
Okay.
In fact, when Doshi's house was published, I was surprised accidentally in the thesis I did in housing and community planning. One of the type designs I had done matches 100% with his house plan.
Oh, I think you've had a lot of.
It was an accident.
Yes.
You're doing very well. You're already doing some nice buildings work, nice work in US, getting recognized. Awards were coming. That came in later, but then the buildings that you were designing were getting recognized. So what was the reason for you to come back to India?
So ultimately, you want to be back home.
Okay. But we don't see that as a
There
case
are
nowadays.
two aspects to life. One is profession, the other is how you feel about where you're doing what you're doing. And I personally feel I would have never felt 100% at home. Even though if I had to lock up and go back to any part of the world out of India today, I'll still go back to New York. But no other place in the whole entire United States.
So when you came back to India, what was the scene like, for architecture? Was there a growth happening? Was the boom, like you said at the beginning when you left from here, was that over, or was it a completely different world of architecture that you were coming back to?
I think it's a little more complex than just whether there's work or not. When I came back, as I told you, I left Convinde's office. I came to join them. I left Convinde's office for two reasons. One was I really didn't feel wanted by somebody there. The other was I realized that I cannot really do exactly what I want to do as long as I'm working for somebody else. And that was difficult to do in USA, which was easier for me to do here because I still have some kind of friends infrastructure and family infrastructure. So, in fact, I started working for myself in Delhi itself, but I quickly realized in Delhi, if you want to get work, you have to line somebody's pockets, no matter who it is. And every step of the way, you have to keep shelling out money. And I am not the one who wanted to do this kind of thing, because you can either be creative or you can count money. So I was ready to pack up and go back. And then this friend of mine suggested, okay, you go for Bharat Darshan in South India. And I landed up in Bangalore. But after I started working here, for 6 months I stayed in a hotel with my family. My daughter started going to Valley School, and we had no work. I made a list of companies who had more than 6 phones those days. Phones were hard to get. So this was a parameter I established. Okay, if a company has 6 phones, they would have decent infrastructure. We made that list, started making calls, and that's how I landed first few jobs. First job was a house for Dr. Agdi in Wilson Gardens. Then there was another house from Nagraj Gupta. He was a travel agent. That was in Baswangudi. And they still live in those houses. In Nagraj Gupta's house is the first time I experimented with that triangulation idea. I didn't put 8 rooms in a fan, but I put 4 rooms and living dining. etc. So it works. People are very happy there. So then we got projects with CSIR, NAL. So for CSIR, we designed scientist apartments in Delhi. That time, the Director General was one Dr. Sidhu. He was very interested in doing different things. We had designed a natural cooling system, for which we did a model. NAR lab ran a test. We've spent a lot of money on the wind tunnel test to see if my theory was working. And they established that we'll get a reduction of 7 to 8 degrees centigrade with that system. Only with the help of one centralized exhaust fan.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I used this concept of radial plan. So basically it radiates from the center and then you hollow out the central area and that's where you have a shaft. And then you use the principle of wind catchers to, like in Iran, wind catchers for cooling with and a tank in the basement. And then the cool air rises up through ducts.
Oh, so hot air goes
Yes.
in, gets cooled into
Yes.
water and
Yes.
comes.
In winter, it will reverse, or you can shut it down. So, unfortunately, Dr. Sidhu died before the building was completed,
Yes.
and they found it. They found the overhead tank and that system on top little difficult to construct. The contractor talked them out of it. They just decided not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They ruined the whole thing. CBRI Roorkee took that work of mine and they published it in their own name.
Oh.
You never confronted them?
How do you confront government departments in this country? Right. So you can either fight cases against them or you can do work. As a principle, you have tried to stay away from legal battles. Even the clients, I've never sued a client in life, even for fees. Then we have done scientist apartments for NAL. There we have created a wind tunnel effect for cross ventilation. I think Arun Swaminathan had friends living there. I didn't know that. He tells me that it really works well.
Mm-hmm.
And several projects for NAL. ADA headquarters is designed by us.
Right.
And there...
On this road, yes.
Yes.
Close by.
Yes. Not ISRO.
No, ADA.
ADA.
Aeronautical Development Established.
Their headquarters is designed by us. And basically, so in the process, what has happened is I've been evolving subconsciously from functionalism to feeling. So basically, the scientist apartment was feeling of comfort, naturally without mechanical system. NAL apartments does the same thing. Office building for ADA has a courtyard. So when you enter, you actually walk through the courtyard to go to various spots. And the courtyard has a skylight which can be closed in winter. And during rainy season, you open it to make sure that the humidity doesn't build up.
Nice.
And we had to do a lot of R&D even for the skylight.
But they allowed you to do it.
Huh?
I mean, even from a cost point of view, it was...
That time, the director of ADA was Dr. Valluri, who was before that director of NAL. So first he gave us NAL projects, then he gave us that. So basically, the whole thing depends on that one man on top. So the day Dr. Valluri retired, after that there were a couple of really good directors, and then one day suddenly there was a director who didn't care, both at NAL and at ADA, and then their engineers started demanding cuts from us, which I don't take, I don't give. So last set of fees from both the places we never collected. So I told them, instead of giving money to you, I'll leave it with the government. They said, you won't get any more work. I said, no, fine.
From making calls to people who have more than 5 or 6 phone numbers to becoming one of the biggest firms in Bangalore. I believe when I was in college, you had close to about 40, 50 people working with you. When I just started.
No, we had up to 30 people in Bangalore, 10 in Delhi, and 10 or 15 in Chandigarh.
Oh, nice. So close to about 60, 65
Yes,
people.
yes.
So you came a long way, established a really nice practice and did some really nice work. So that journey, what was your, apart from just these?
I think after a while, work just kept coming. So after those first few years, we hardly did any marketing. This work kept coming by word of mouth.
So what was that because of? Was it because of your, the hard work that you were doing? Was it because of the creative process that you had? What exactly do you put
I
credit it
think
to?
this is what I think, but real answer can come only from the clients. I think it was because of our commitment to do the best possible. The clients were happy, that's why the repeat work came. Dr. Valluri was happy, otherwise he wouldn't have given us a ADA headquarters. But we were lucky they were all honest people there, those days. Hopefully they are still honest people there, but in between, when the directors themselves were not involved in this day-to-day decision making, that is when this rot takes place.
So having established the firm, you also got into teaching.
That I started right from beginning. I kept getting invited. In fact, the first offer came right in the beginning. They wanted me to take over as the head of the Department of School of Architecture, UVC.
Okay, UVC.
Culturally, US and India are very different. There are overlaps,
Yes.
but very different. When you made the shift, from for 15 years, 15 years is a long duration. It's not actually a small duration, you having practiced in the US. And I would say, I'm especially saying practice in the US, from a relevance point of view, you were probably getting things a lot more right. Otherwise, these awards and acknowledgement and facilitations wouldn't have come, which means you were able to kind of cater to them or contribute to them from their point of view. Otherwise, why would they celebrate? Why would they award or facilitate somebody who's being an architect in their context?
But the awards went to the firms, not to me.
Sure, but it's your work. Sure.
Yes. But there's a difference. There, I didn't have to go looking for work.
Here you're wearing an entrepreneur.
It came to the company and we just did it. Here we had to look for work and then do it. So that's the big difference.
Correct. So that's the entrepreneurial hat.
Yes.
Because you're playing it's like playing a different game, right?
Yes.
There it was, your life was centered creatively. You got to deliver.
Yes.
Here you got to get work and then of course deliver.
Correct.
They're different things. But I'm talking from a context difference. It's like designing a home for considering culturally, people-wise, what is important to them, what is important to us as people are different. They are in different stages of nation building. They did not particularly get into World War II, but they were still having a complete turnaround. Socially, there was a lot of shifts that were happening socially. We were undergoing a nation building exercise literally from at the same time. When in the 1979 you moved inside, there were lots of things happening. You had left a different India.
Yes.
When you came back to a different India.
Yes.
So how different was India when you came back from a cultural point of view?
I frankly didn't feel that much of a difference, except the inflation. So like when I went to USA, the dollar was 5 rupees, not even 5. And when we came back, it was 7.5. But today the dollar is 92 rupees.
Right.
So actually that kind of shock is a lot more during last 5 years than it was those days.
Right.
The major change in India was the political.
Right. Yes, please.
So the Indira Gandhi era
had come to end.
And afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, in 83.
Yes. But most of the work we have done in India was apolitical. So I've stayed away from government projects. We were lucky we even did a large housing project for uh, Development Authority in Mysore.
Muda.
Mysore Urban Development,
MUD.
MUDA, yes. We have done a project called Bugadi.
Hmm.
The entire project is done by us.
Hmm.
They had offered us 3 projects of that size. So I told them, look, guys, I don't have the infrastructure to service. So I gave them names of Sharad Padalkar, Shankar Kanade, and couple of other names. So these guys are good architects, give it to them.
Hmm.
So we were lucky the work came.
Correct.
I didn't have to, even the government work, and I must be the only architect who didn't pay them a single penny and bribe to get my bills out.
Right.
And must be also the only architect who got 100% fees from them.
Yes.
Karnataka Housing Board likewise. Same guys who would not release bill of other architects would release my bill.
Right.
The only thing I gave them was on Diwali, we used to give gifts to everyone. Same gifts went to them.
Right.
Nothing special. So we maintained that. In the process, we lost some clients. I'm not even aware of that, who we lost and who we won because of that. I know what we lost because of favoritism. That problem was there more in private projects.
You are also pretty fairly known as somebody who broke mold.
Among the professionals.
Yes. We would like your perspective on that. That opinion that didn't come from out of the blue. Because it isn't one project that people created that opinion. People created that opinion over multiple projects. According to you, how are you being different?
I'll give you 2 examples. One example I'll give you about private houses. Okay, so when we design a house, we insist on interviewing the entire family.
Okay.
Okay, the children, the wife, the master of the house, everyone involved. And we try to understand what are their feelings. It's not just number of rooms and the size of the rooms. It is what they want to really get out of it. So to be able to interpret the feelings of the people who you are designing for is my specialization. For example, the people who have been my clients, even for one building, if they come to me even today, if they start telling me what are their requirements, halfway through I can complete the rest of it. So I am a student of human nature.
Nice.
So it's not functionalism, it's feeling. I started out as an architect in the era of functionalism, and I changed over the time. I'll give you another example. We designed 2 small houses, 30 by 40 sites. One family, they have a very active life. They are socially very happy, etc., etc. They're very, very active life. I designed a house for them which gives them a very, very calm environment, interior. Very calm. So that they come home and they feel different. Whereas another family, the owner, the client had a 9 to 5 job in a government office. Happy man, but bored. He looked bored too.
Okay.
Okay, and we designed his house with very dynamic interiors.
Right.
And bright colors, which I very rarely do.
Right.
In bigger houses, we have created courtyards. I think I was the first one to start courtyards with skylights in Bangalore 44 years ago.
Nice.
The first skylight leaked for a few years, but the client is so happy he doesn't mind. So one day he invited me and it was raining. So it started leaking. I looked at him, doctor, aren't you unhappy about it? So there are more things to be happy about. So then I had this skylight change because by then the new systems were available. Then we did the first skylight, there were no systems available. So we had done with steel angles and sealant and capping. It worked for 3-4 years and then it started. We used to use this metal paste to seal it. Sealants came much later.
I remember. Metal paste is still in use, by the way.
Yeah, this client's wife, was not very happy originally about this courtyard. He said, "You mean to say you're going to create a Lal Bagh inside my house?" I can't answer precisely. Can you imagine having a Lal Bagh 24 hours a day in your house? And till today, 45 years later, when I met them a few days ago, they said you did a good sales job at that time. But we are happy.
Throughout your practice, you've been doing a lot of climate responsive designs,
Yes.
which I think from an architect's perspective is the right thing to do, which is
Yes.
the way we have been also taught in college. But somewhere along the line, Vastu comes into the picture. So
Yeah.
do you see a link between climate responsive houses and Vastu? And
Absolutely. See, if you look at the basic principles of Vastu, they give you orientation. They tell you the northeast corner of the property should not have a tree. Very simple. They don't want you to lose the sunlight. If you don't get sunlight, what will give you life? When they say put the master bedroom in the southwest, the wind direction is from southwest to northeast in the evening. So they want to keep the master of the house cool. So it's all purely scientific. There are a few things which are traditional and they vary from one place to the other. The variation is because of the variation of the climate. So it's totally scientific.
But why does it become that it's like signs of fear, where the moment you put something about Vastu, people just want it to be changed? Or it's more of a fear now than
It's more of a belief than the science.
More than belief, it's a fear. Like ये नहीं ऐसे नहीं करोगे तो ये हो जाएगा, वैसे नहीं करोगे तो वो हो जाएगा.
No, you see, like every profession in the world, including our profession, there are quacks who want to make money. So, a Vastu consultant who is sitting in Delhi and is giving consultancy based on the climate in Delhi for Bangalore house, you can imagine the mess it will make.
And also in a context where there are densely populated buildings, that the entire climatology change, the climate response changes because of the buildings around.
Yes.
And a lot of other things. So then Vastu principles still remain the same.
So I'll give you. Have you seen the Havelis of Jaisalmer?
Yes,
I have.
Yes.
Have you seen the buildings in tightly built building? Yes. So what do? They're all oriented to climate control. Every house in hot and dry climate, no matter which part of the world you go, has a courtyard in traditional buildings. In Jaisalmer and in various other parts, you'll find a well in the middle of the house. The whole purpose was you're pulling water out, it gets spilled, and it keeps on spilling. There's cooling by evaporation.
Yes.
And in the facade, if the facade is facing west, they have jalis. If it's not facing west, they don't have jalis. So jali, what does it do? It you remember the principle of physics. When the air passes under pressure through an orifice, there's a drop in temperature.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happens there. Incidentally, my thesis in B-Arch was housing in desert.
Housing in desert.
Housing in desert. And I was in the School of Architecture, Delhi, the first one to do a thesis on housing and climate control. So basically, I learned a lot more of design in Delhi School of Architecture. Technology I imbibed at MIT. And rest of it is understanding the social behavior of people. That's my personal. So if I was to say how my way of thinking has changed from the beginning till today, is pure functionalism to feeling. So it's the feeling which is more critical. Functionalism is a aspect of feeling in practical life.
I'm still mapping the same journey with him. There's something that happened, and I'm as Bangaloreans say, you're an immigrant, because I moved in here at a certain point of time in my life. To be, now that I'm putting it on record, I arrived here in a train with 13 cartons, one trunk, one suitcase, and a backpack. at 2 p.m., 29th of December 2003. Do the maths. But I saw quick changes.
Hmm.
When I came in, I had seen 100 Feet Road, Indranagar.
With houses, with
Yeah,
private
with
houses.
bungalows. Very nice, right? And the
Yes.
weather was different and all of that. In the last more than 20 years that I've been in the city, the whole city has changed. Like, I remember going from Indranagar to Idipura,
Yes.
and there was nobody on the road.
Yes.
And I stopped in between there to see tanks roll by,
Hmm.
and a little ahead was lakes, right? And that was like a cant area, and with this connecting road in between. I think Natasha Golview was last. After that, there wasn't much.
Yes.
Now there is a whole city and tech park and God knows whatever. So there's none of this. Quiet is completely gone. And this has happened in the last 20 years.
Yes.
You came back to Bangalore 79, 80,
When it was still green.
still green. So,
Yes.
so you saw the
Yes.
reminiscence of why Bangalore was called Bangalore.
Those,
And I came in at a point of time and the shifts had started happening. And after that, it was just shift,
yes.
right? So you've seen about 5 decades of Bangalore and practiced architecture in the city, right? How do you record this shift? Either symbolically, iconically, or the concerns of the city itself changed?
I think I've seen total destruction of Bangalore.
Okay.
In these 5 decades. It used to be a green city. That we came here because of that. We came here because of that character of the city. And if I had to make that decision today, I won't come. So I think it's the greed of making money which has ruined the city. We don't have as such a city center. The city is not so big that it needs multiple city centers. Every main street is a city center now. The 100-foot road Indranagar, 80-foot road Indranagar, 12th main Indranagar. I mean, it's not for people anymore.
Yeah.
When this happened in the old cities, there used to be shops in the front, but right behind you go one street inside, it's all open and green. You can see a sampling of that in Indranagar. You go to 12th main, towards 80-foot road, is all crowded, but you go 2 streets inside, it's nice and quiet.
Yeah.
So, but where was the need to allow this kind of development to happen? So BDA has failed the people. They should have concentrated, okay, if Indranagar needs a commercial center, the idiots built a shopping complex at the edge. How will it
Just
work?
now demolished.
Now that's being demolished was a big failure. But the same thing was in a location similar to where they have Indranagar Club.
It would have been a lot more thriving.
Then this 100-foot road mess won't have happened.
People won't have lost their houses.
Then this is one part. The other is then the greed of the officials. Now, every third building has a resto bar on the terrace. When you go to that place in the evening, on a Saturday night, you hear all this noise. It's no longer music. You can go to a pub and enjoy a drink on a working day, but you go on a weekend, is only the young kids who think it's the hap thing to do there. They slog all day in their software offices, and they run to these places. They don't know anything better. Instead of these pubs, now something is different is beginning to happen. They are having pubs and dance bars without any drinks now. Some other soft drinks this is beginning to happen. This will come only from the behavior change of thinking among the young generation rather than, say, left to the money sharks. They would still want this. They will come and open it one here also if you allow them. And people will come here also, ironically. I mean, Jeevan Bhima Nagar was a landmark. Look at the condition.
In your practice, did you rebel against this or take a stand against this or negotiate this? Do whatever it was possible, because at the end of the day, you had to land a project. If you didn't do it, they would go to somebody else.
That's what happened all the time.
So the people who stuck around with you, your clients who stuck around with you, and still decided to give you a project
Yes.
were considerate of this, and they did
Yes.
not want the
Yes.
same thing.
Yeah. I could talk them out of it.
Right. And will it be all right to ask you for an example where you felt that the client and you were together and you did not go in the direction that Bangalore by and large has gone?
Well, I can. Basically, I was successful to the extent that I was not party to illegal construction.
Hmm.
I was not party to violating the bylaws. And I have also refrained from doing glass boxes
Nice.
and losing jobs.
Right.
Somebody comes to me, building is facing west, they say, but I want a glass facade. They bring a magazine. I want this. So I used to say, if this is what you want, go to so-and-so, he'll do whatever you want. And some of them literally went to him. I don't want to name my fellow pro.
Now that you were, in your practice in Bangalore over 40, 50 years, are you more an entrepreneur or are you more a designer?
I am only a designer.
I know, sir, being who he is, designer is what it is. So, but entrepreneurship automatically comes because we are running our own offices and stuff.
Sure.
So, I think some of the top names in Bangalore architectural community today have worked at some point or the other have worked with you, trained with you, and then moved on from there. What is the feeling like after so many years when you see so many people who have worked with you and are thriving and are doing well? So what's the feeling like for you?
In many cases, very, very satisfying. Some of them are following the principles I believe in. Some have gone beyond than I was able to do. Because of various reasons, they are able to do it better than I am. And some of them have gone totally berserk. So those who have followed some of my principles, they are still in touch with me. They keep telling me what they are doing, and that's satisfying. So at the end of the day, even if you have half a dozen people whom you have been able to guide properly, I think that's a good achievement.
Nice. And you've been teaching from the time you came back to India, starting from UVC. And I think till even recently, you're also
started with BMS.
And you're still, even now, you're
not anymore.
Not anymore?
Now, I think people think I am too old, I can't teach, so they don't invite me.
Okay. What's your experience been like in terms of what is the change in the education system that has happened over the years? And has it been for the better or for the worse? Generally,
I think the quality of teaching has definitely gone down. The simple reason, there are so many schools of architecture. There are 50 schools in Karnataka.
50?
There
were 5 in Bangalore.
25 in and around Bangalore.
Oh, there were 5 when I was in college. And I knew
there are around 25 schools of architecture in and around Bangalore. So each school needs about minimum full-time faculty of 30. 30 into 50 is 1,500.
Yeah.
So where are you going to find quality teachers? If you go to these colleges, they have a lot of young kids who come out of the school and next day they start teaching. They haven't developed enough. There are rare exceptions. They come out of school and they are mature enough to teach. A couple of at least one I can think of right now. And they know their shortcoming. That is why then they go and discuss with their senior faculty. But the quality of staff is just not available. It's not feasible. We had 5 schools of architecture in the entire country when I started architecture. Today, in Karnataka, you'll probably have 50. So in the faraway places like Hubli, etc., where will they attract good faculty from?
Yeah.
That is one. Secondly, at least when we were in Delhi School of Architecture, there were full-time faculty who were allowed to practice. I don't know how it is now. And they were outstanding professionals, outstanding teachers, and they really did a great job. I don't think that quality of faculty is available. Earlier, when I used to go as visiting lecturers to various colleges, I started open house when we came to Bangalore for students.
Open house
Open house from 5 to 7, anybody could come without appointment
at your
at my office. And after that, a lot of other architects followed suit.
Hmm.
Now, students don't want to come. They want people to come to them. So, if the seeker is not seeking, where do you go?
So is this a system change or is it a behavior change?
I think it's a combination. You can't always blame the system. System is created by people like you and me only. So it's the management level decision which kill it. So if full-time faculty is allowed to also be a full-time teacher, how they manage their time is their business. So if I could teach 4 hours a day and I spend 5 hours a day in my practice, the practice will still run. But the institutions should permit. They don't.
So you've had the opportunity of working from, so you started your architecture education in 61, 62, around that.
59.
59. And started working at in 63, 64, 65.
I worked summers every year from
And
second year
over the
on.
last 50 years or so, 50, 60 years,
60 years.
now a lot has changed.
Yes.
What is your take on that? I mean, how has the architectural community and the fraternity evolved? And
Okay, I
what the
think
future
lately
is?
there are a lot of good architects who are really committed to good work. So on that one, I think there's a real plus. I see a lot of good work going on, and that is entirely their own effort. I won't give credit to these schools. It's their own effort, and they have gone out and learned. This is the generation which went from office to consult various architects for when they were in the school. And some of them even continue to come to me for advice even when they started practice. And I'm sure there are a lot of other architects who have done it. I think my generation did it. Most of the architects were like that. So there's a lot of good practices coming up. But if you look at in terms of percentage, it's not enough. You can probably count twice on the fingers of your hand number of practices which I would consider really good. But there are people who are doing really good work.
But isn't there like a familiarity that is built in, whether it's a project done in any part of the European country to anywhere in the Indian context? There seems to be a lot of, unless the name of the architect and the place is specified, a lot of buildings look very similar, same concrete finishes, same kind of cantilevers.
No, I think there are two schools of this. There are those selected few architects are sensitive to local environments. So they are doing work. Their work will be different here, different in USA, different in one of the Arab countries. There are a lot of sensitive architects who are doing really, really good work all over the world. But I won't blame the entire community. But then there are people who probably were not fit to be in architecture. They have to make a living. They will do what the client wants. And most of the clients are not enlightened enough. So for the architecture to be a good product, the client has to be a good client, understanding client. It's not just the architect's fault. So somewhere along the line, the survival comes and then people do what they have to do.
And generally, architects have the names of their offices or practices after them. And like in your case,
Yes.
you've now lived a life, you're 84, 85, and you've closed the office, but you've had a very successful career. You had, like you said, 60, 70 people working with you, 3 offices across the country. what would it take? I mean, why generally this is not carried forward to the next generation or for somebody else to take over apart from their children alone?
Okay, I'll tell you from my point of view. I made a mistake. I should have converted this practice into a non-proprietorship 20 years ago. And then it won't have closed down. So Mistry did a good job. His wife is an architect, so she's carrying on. But they also have a lot of architects whom they brought up to be part of the setup. Charles Correa did, that firm is still working, though she did. So in my case, it's entirely my fault. And the other reason is those offices, so this is one type of offices. The other type of offices are like Venkatraman Associates. His son is an architect. He's carried on. Whether his children will be architects or not, I don't know. But they are large enough. If they think well in time, then this can continue. So I don't know what is there.
Like Skidmore, even though it's named after the founders, it still continues after 100 odd years.
Also, I was the first generation in our family to go on into business on my own. And we were generally, because we were not commercial, we were generally just busy running around trying to make sure that we can pay the staff on time. This is one thing I never allowed to happen. First day of the month, people have to be paid whether I have money or not. So somewhere along the line, I personally lost that ability to think beyond that. So I take the blame from it.
You had a different set of challenges when you started off. Certain things worked for you, certain things were against you. For example, what worked for you, as you mentioned, that the fact that you came back was looked upon as go to hell.
Yes.
Right? And people didn't even see your work. Your work should have been seen first,
Yes.
ideally.
Yes.
Right. So while that worked for you, the other thing that may not have worked for you is opportunities are limited. It was a smaller world. Today, if there are 1,500 architects coming out in Bangalore every year, we are not qualitatively looking at it.
Yes.
They're all doing something.
Yes.
Most of it relevant to a field, to architecture or otherwise.
Yes.
That means there is so much opportunity of work also. Otherwise, colleges would not produce that and they would not be soaked in.
No, I would like to correct you on this.
Right.
This is one of the reasons why the architects don't get paid enough.
Right. Yeah.
Two reasons. One is quality of staff coming out is not good and there are too many of them. And most of the architects want pencil pushers, now the computer operators.
Right. In this kind of a scenario, now in the current context, what would be your suggestion of things that we should hold on to and things that we should just let go?
I think first thing is that we should make sure that people can think, and that they can do only if we keep the machines out of the classroom, at least for some 3 years out of 5 years. People just are unable to think. Out in all these years of my practice, so we started working on computers, I think 30 years ago. We were one of the first firms to do it on rented time on computer. We had to produce some 1,500 drawings for Tata Housing in 3 months. We did. So whereas computers help us to produce the drawings, but the people who were producing the drawings were all thinkers. They were not producing what they were being told. They were thinking and working. I only gave them outline sketches. They criticized me. They made me change things. They made me see their way. We agreed, we disagreed, and we came up with a solution. And the production started after that.
Right.
Today, the production starts before they think.
This is for us as well. Yes, please.
Today, the productions of documents start before they think. We lost so many software projects because the clients wanted us to compete. Illegal competitions. Half the time we refused, few times we did, but then they would say, but we want it in 3 days. So what will you do in 3 days? Cut, paste. I don't want to give rubber stamp architecture. Most of your apartment buildings in this city, you pick all the big name architects or rubber stamp architects. All your big name architects, you go around, you'll find maybe 2 apartment buildings out of 20 where they have done any innovative work. So we need to come out of this mentality of production before thinking.
Yeah.
People can't think. Sitting on the machine. So, talking about AI a little bit, whatever I understand based on that. So AI is supposed to give you a perfect solution. AI is not supposed to make mistakes. But how do you learn if you don't make mistakes? If you're not learning, you're not growing. If you're not growing, so you're going backwards. You can either go backwards or forward, but you can't be stagnant. So AI, what will AI do? It can AutoCAD did was the beginning. So the day people started working on AutoCAD directly from day one, they lost their ability to think. When AI takes over, whatever little bit is there is going to be lost. So they say the machines will do the thinking. I agree they'll do the thinking. It can do the thinking up to the level of the person who has created that key. That is why they continue to improve the AI. So those few people are thinkers. Everybody else is a tool.
Yeah.
This is my simplistic way of looking at it. Yeah.
What has been your experience of having this conversation with us?
Well, it's the first time I've really sat down and think what I've gone through my life.
Right. How do you feel
So
about it?
I never sit back and reflect except on personal issues and my personal behavior. But professionally, I just let it flow.
How do you feel about this chat?
Basically, I have vented my feelings completely.
Absolutely.
So I'm relieved.
Right.
But if it can help some other people, it'll be more useful.
That is our purpose as well, which is why we say we're creating a black book of creative journeys.
Yes.
Is we can't replicate another person's creative journey.
The other thing is, for years, people have been talking about mentorship and all that. Frankly, I would have been very happy to mentor some people, young practitioners, if they really wanted to. But the young practitioners think differently. They think AI is going to do the job for them, AutoCAD will do the job for them. And it's doing it as far as money making is concerned. So I think there's a need to change the mindset of the coming generations. And that will have to start from first grade, the generation who is going to school today.
Yeah.
This current generation is too busy trying to make their ends meet. And there's going to be more people available. There's going to be scarcity of jobs. There'll be less jobs, with AI. The what drawings 4 guys used to produce in my office before AutoCAD came, we were doing it with the help of one person. My 50-man office became 15-man office, and we were producing more work. So with AI, it will get worse. So it becomes impersonal and characterless, ultimately. And if we are talking about building character and people thinking in that direction, we start from day one. You have to give them values of civic sense. We have to give them value of behavior with others, all those values of honesty. All that has to start there. So the parents who have minted money, black money by cheating people and cutting the poor man's pockets, they can't give that education to their children. They'll only give them Ferraris and all that. And they'll go and hit somebody next day. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time out and doing this with us.
Thank you. I enjoyed the conversation.
journey.
Thank you so much, sir. Please give us a listen. Let us know what you think about this episode. If you like what you see and hear, please share it amongst your friends and subscribe. Thank you.